You've had an amazing, impressive career as a leader yourself. What would you say has been the highlight of this journey?
Wow, that I had an opportunity to work in all dimensions of the system. I wanted to, first of all, work in different parts of Canada. So I wanted to see different culture. I wanted to understand different health systems. So it was easy to move around the country. I worked in Saskatchewan, I worked in Alberta, and then I came back to Ontario. And Western Canada is very different than Ontario and very different than Eastern Canada when it comes to, although our health systems are very similar, the cultures are very different. So I was really fortunate to have that opportunity to move around. And I think that was a real goal of mine, was not to stay in the same organization for my whole career. So when I look back, I think that was the greatest part. I was able to work in government. I worked in a association management with the Alberta Healthcare Association. I was fortunate to be in Calgary when we started regional health systems, and I was a big part of developing that regional authority. I got to work and get to know people in long-term care, home care, public health, because I was an acute care person. I worked in hospitals my whole life. And just to understand that there were other dimensions in the system and people do think differently and people operate differently, I became, rather than a hospital administrator, I became a health administrator. So I started to understand all parts of the system. So when I look back, to get back to your question, I really think it was just the opportunity to work in different parts of the country and to work in the different divisions of the health system.
Especially because our health system is so, complex. There are so many different layers. And while you were speaking, what I pulled out from there was that diversity that helped you to see the big picture. So how different just the way our systems work from one province to another, and how when you get that perspective from somewhere else, you're able to bring it and create such a change in maybe another area. Same thing with the hospital and the long-term care, community settings. Such a key skill to have as a leader.
Well, there's no question that it's so important for us to really understand what are the pressures. I know we have major pressures in hospitals, but there are major pressures in home care, and there are major pressures in long-term care. And, the pandemic has really brought out, what are the issues out there in the system? And we all have to start reaching out and understanding each other better. We all think we have the most pressure in hospitals, but look at what's happening in the long-term care sector. And I think it's that appreciation and knowledge to really understand and be able to be empathetic for what all of our colleagues are going through throughout the system. And the handoff is so important, because when somebody leaves the hospital, if there's not that follow-up in the community, they'll be right back into the hospital. So that whole understanding of an integrated system is very important.
That's so true. And, the pandemic, it's highlighted the importance of that connection between the different settings.
Absolutely.
And how quickly we can put things together to make it work.
That's for sure. Absolutely. Yes.
And as a leader, John, what would you say are your top 3 values?
When I talk about values, I always think of integrity, I think of honesty, and I think of empathy. And I sort of use empathy and compassion together, because that's sort of our industry. As a health administrator, we are a people organization, and when you're dealing with people, you have to have that empathy and compassion. It's just a natural value that you have to work in this industry.
It's so important as a leader to build a strong team around you. So how do you incorporate some of your own values when you're hiring to build that team around you?
Well, it's true, when you go to an organization, which sometimes you have to work with the team that are there, but then you have an opportunity to bring in your own people. And usually you look around your team and see what's missing. And what do you really need there? And I always like to, you've heard this expression many times, but I've always liked to hire people that were smarter than me because, they were the ones that challenged me. And I never liked a yes person. I always wanted someone to question why we're doing things. So I always looked at very strong individuals in their field and their background. And even those that I came into that never were or didn't really look to be very strong, I worked with them to really manage their strengths. So it's not only just saying, let's bring in all our own people. It's working with people to make sure you understand how they can work well with you also going forward. And it's also very important that they were team players.
That challenge is so important because it gives leaders that opportunity to reflect and think about, maybe a different way to do things. Do you have any advice for, aspiring leaders who are in those positions? Maybe they have a thought they want to share or an idea, but they don't have the courage to share it with the leader. Maybe, they say sometimes slapped on the hand for speaking up. How can they feel more confident in their own ideas and influence maybe upwards?
I'm hoping that we're moving more to a culture of innovation in our organizations, because I think we're finding that, and particularly when you go through a crisis like the pandemic, that everybody has to have a say in how to improve things and how we do things differently. And unfortunately, a crisis usually has to happen for this to occur, but we should be having regular feedback from our staff and regular feedback from our leaders to ask them to really share that whole area of improvement. The patient care system is a continuous improvement opportunity, and we should always be learning from our mistakes, and we should be developing, so they don't happen again. And I think that now, our culture is really more open so that people should be able to express themselves more and to share their innovation and creativity. And if you're in an organization where that's not possible, then I would suggest you look to another organization, because there are many of them out there that really are welcoming feedback from the staff. I also work and I do some consulting with an organization by the name of Studer. And the Studer organization really teaches the principles of rounding with your staff and getting feedback from your staff and meeting with your staff on a regular basis, whether you're a manager or a director or a vice president or the president, that you go out and do rounding with your staff so you're getting that creativity and getting ideas back, not just once in a while, but all the time. And it's consistent. And it's a consistent message to your staff that I want to hear from you. I want your creative ideas, and I always want to make sure we're improving the way we treat our patients.
As they say, innovation is key to any business to survive, and that rounding, being open to other people's ideas, thoughts, giving others an opportunity to share creates that psychological safety within your team, within your organization.
And I think that we've also opened up even more to that rounding with patients and rounding with patients' families. So we're actually including them in suggestions of how to improve things.
Right.
So, we should be, that culture of innovation should also be a culture of quality improvement. That's always what we want to do.
And now, John, when you were hiring for your team, is there one question you would always ask your potential hire?
I would always ask, why do you want to come to this organization? And why do you want to share your skills with this organization? What is it that is your passion for being here?
Is there a golden ticket answer that would get them hired?
No, there isn't, actually. I think what it's really saying is you really have to start thinking about the why. And rather than me saying, what is your why? I want them to come out and tell me, why am I here? Why do you want this particular job? And, we should all be answering that question. Why do I get up every day and go to work? Why am I doing this? So that's really the key behind it, is I just want to hear the why.
I love that, because your why is so powerful, right? Regardless of what the world is telling you. If you know your why, you're going to be doing the work that you need to do.
Absolutely. You know, I learned a lot through the College of Health Leaders. We developed the LEADS program, and the LEADS framework is very important about that, an individual really understanding themselves and as a leader, and that why question comes up all the time. To constantly evaluate why you're doing things, why you're here, why, and what are the outcomes, and how can we always improve?
Can I ask you, John, what is your why? Why do you wake up every morning motivated to do the work that you're still doing?
You know, I think it's that whole area of really feeling like you still have a lot to contribute. And I feel like I've had such great experience over the years that I want to share that. And I'm still learning too, by the way. I mean, I still enjoy doing my reads and going through various leadership books that really are challenging me all the time. And the reason I get up every day is just to see what can I do to make this a better place, you know. And if I can still contribute, then I'm still going to be there.